The fishing news is sponsored by these fine partners.
It's all quiet though on the eastern front through the middle of this week. It's not going to be quiet anymore, not as of this weekend. We're just about ready for things to explode. We're fixing to rip the lid off that 55-gallon drum of fall action. That's a little snippet from last week's video forecast that we did at Fisherman's headquarters. Not too far off, right? I did change the saying a little bit. It's supposed to be fixing to rip the lid off a 55-gallon drum of... But this is, after all, family show. I'm Jim Hutchinson, the New Jersey Delaware Bay edition of the Fisherman magazine. It's Thursday, October 13th, 2022. And yes, things exploded on the striper front over the weekend. Quite possibly the greatest sustained multi-run of jumbo striped bass by beach and boat at the Jersey Shore in the past 40 years. And it's not just me saying that. I've spoken to a lot of folks who've been in the tackle and for hire business here at the Jersey Shore for quite a few years who say the same thing. And it's indicative of the emails, the photos loading up my mailbox and coming through on my cell phone on a regular basis. I believe the first contact that I had was from Ed Plickta Saturday morning, who said he was having a banner striped bass day off of Barnegat Inlet up to Seaside, live lining a bunch of overs. And he said apparently fish were everywhere up and down the coast. Yes, they were on Saturday. I heard this from Jason Sotomayor on Saturday. He and his 15-year-old son, also named Jason, got some fresh bunker from the tackle box, used a bunker head on a circle hook for this 48-incher at Sandy Hook.
Reel it, puppy. Go, baby.
Real, Jay, real.
Holy shnikes indeed. Down as far as Atlantic County, where Dennis and Tommy Huber went offshore for sea bass and stumbled into the blitzing stripers on their way back through to Absecon Inlet. Dennis said it was good to get on the striped bass action without paying the Parkway toll to head north to where the promised land typically is. Now, the passing of Hurricane Fiona, followed by the weekend, the weekend of Hurricane Ian, which formed and gave us the sloppiness, the northeast wind, and the rain, and the snotty conditions for a week. Yet as we looked at the weather heading into last weekend, NOAA Weather Forecast showed that the winds were going to lay down and come out of the west, which is offshore here in the New Jersey, Delaware region. Bait gets pushed out of the inlets on those offshore winds. So you start seeing that mass migration. Then, of course, the adult bunker that are already offshore, they nose up against the wind, come in closer to the beach, right? Then you've got the buffalo stampede across the border, that first wave of ginormous striped bass from the east. It hits the bunker pods along the beaches. And yes, the conditions around the Hunter Moon, all stars were aligned, and the bunker bustin' broke out. Boats, of course, did quite well live lining bunker. The kayakers as well had a great shot of trophies around those whales. Of course, I almost saw a couple of kayakers recently look like Jonah and the whale. Raciel Gonzalez got several stripers off of Maniloking on Monday, most of them 40 to 45-inch class. That was taken on his Hobie Outback. By the way, don't forget about the Fisherman magazine's Coastal Kayak Clash. So if you're a kayaker and experiencing this great run, a fish over 47 inches taped out, caught and released will get you on the board there. And of course, the surf was alive. This scene from somewhere along the central coast of New Jersey earlier this week, and similar scenes popped up throughout Ocean and Monmouth County in particular. It shows how surfcasters were chasing hot schools looking for a score. One of those was David Zwankowski, who plugged up a 44-inch striped bass on Sunday morning, Monmouth County. He was using a 7-inch mullet color hydro minnow, safely released and kicked off strong, he said, after a quick photo and a measurement. Now, I spoke to a lot of surfcasters over the last stretch of several days who, like me, had trouble pulling a fish out of those bunker schools. I think Saturday was probably the best day, though I was away with family and friends. Yeah, the cat was away. That's why things broke open. Right place, right time, and the perfect presentation. That's what it's all about. I bumped into Shell Karras on the beach on Tuesday. He said he had just taken a 50 on a metal lip. He advised me to do the same. But I think with all those giant striped bass, how many bunker does it take to fill a belly? So there's so much bunker out there. I think a lot of times maybe the stripers were just chasing the schools and not feeding because they'd already fed. So again, you really had to give that proper presentation. It was a time to pull out the surface plugs, the big pencils, of course, to get that casting distance. We talked about the metal lips swim nice and slow, looks like a bunker imitation. If you're looking to get some additional distance, I would suggest the ocean-borne pencils. These things are the flying pencils. This is the little flying pencil that has given additional casting distance in some of those times where you just needed that additional casting distance. I don't know if you remember the late Ed Jones, Big Ed Lures. Well, here's young Eddie here, young Eddie Jones with a good one he took on a pencil. So yeah, right place, right time, right presentation for this young surfcaster. I want to remind you, of course, that snag and drop is dead. When the slot limit was put in place for striped bass a few years back by the ASMFC, it was meant to preserve those big old fat fecund female fish. The same ones that hit the beaches this week. Those jumbo breeders are the ones that are supposed to give us the next big recruitment year. There was a lot of management discussion in the last couple of years about closing weeks of the season to all striper fishing, even catch and release. Talk about completely shutting down spawning areas like the Raritan Bay in April and May. There was a lot of hand wringing and debate and fingers being pointed that you're the problem, you're the problem. But at the end of the day, the idea was to reduce the mortality rate on big fat stripers, which of course are the mothers of our future attention. You can snag your bunker, but you got to reel it in quickly as possible to get it onto a circle hook. This friend of a friend on Facebook said this is what happens when you don't get that snagged bunker back quickly enough. You can release a jumbo striper and you'll see it kick off nice and clean, but when it's been weighted down, if you've got that weighted treble, my joking buddy put hairs and a blade on this, said this is an artificial. No, if you're snagging a live bait on this, you got to let it go. You've got to transfer it to a circle hook because these big hooks will do damage. So you can let it go, but has it really been safely released? So if you're using natural bait to fish for striped bass, the reminder here, live bunker, bunker chunks, clams, live eels, you must use an inline circle hook. Not everyone is happy with that rule. Not everyone is happy with the slot limit or the one fish bag. But again, this is all being done to help bring that spawning stock biomass back up again so that we can rebuild the striped bass population. Does it make striper fishing harder? Yeah, sure. But again, it's designed to reduce the mortality rate on released striped bass. The overs, that's the bottom line and the part that folks have to remember. It's a little bit of sacrifice today in hopes that the population will improve for tomorrow. I know we've heard that from managers before. Sacrifice now, but do we ever really reap the rewards? Well, hopefully we will. And stripers are an emotional, highly charged subject. Just remember, the reason this is in place is to improve the survivability on the jumbos we released. So a lot of folks finding during the run this most recent buffalo stampede is that these pencils weren't getting it done. The poppers, the tsunami talking poppers, it was hard. So folks wanted to get into the live lining. I get it. And it's his first buffalo stampede of the year. It may have passed. I think the dinosaurs may have already left the area. But we're going to get more waves of good stripers on a regular basis from the east in due time, and hopefully those fish are more apt to be fooled on the artificials. I would share with you for a moment, though, the tracking data from one of those buffalo that we tagged aboard Chuck Manny's Tie Man in early November of 2021. Chuck had been on those big fish off Sandy Hook for a couple of weeks at that point. But we tagged a fish that we named Uncle Fred in early November. Look how far Uncle Fred traveled and how fast. In 2 weeks, it was already off of Ocean City, New Jersey. 5 days later, it was passing by the mouth of Delaware Bay. Think about the time since the first buffalo arrived. on Saturday. Fast moving, big fish, but that's just the start, folks. We're in for a little bit of perhaps old school structure fishing for the next few days until that next wave arrives. Night creeping while others are sleeping. Steve Urbano got in touch with me this week. He walked the beaches of Monmouth County on Tuesday night, only had one smaller bass for it. And he joked to me, now I remember why I got the boat. For sure. It's not always going to be stupid fishing. Bunker busting striped bass with monster bluefin crashing the party in 10 feet of water near Shark River. That's like this image. It was captured by photographer Mary Dunham of Shore Shot Images just the other day. And of course, all the whales. Just have a little patience. There's more to come. Sea bass and the offshore forecast is next after a brief trip to the Poconos to check in with my buddy, George Schauer.
Well, hey, thanks, Jim. You know, it is autumn here in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, and the fishing could not be better. You know, we've been talking for a while now about how this cool weather is going to start turning on those muskie, those pike, those walleye, those trout. Well, the time is now, guys. We are post-hurricane, and things really couldn't be better. You know, Josh Taylor was out on Beltsville, and he was drop-shotting some LY for these walleye, being pretty successful. It's a great technique. You know, you get that bait down, live bait, you can't beat it this time of year, and get that right off bottom and get into some of those nice walleye. And knowing Josh, there's a whole lot more to come. Now, talking about the trout, you know, it's something we haven't been talking about much with the warm weather, but now that it's cold, the trout are starting to go in full swing. I tied in with Eric Goodstall over at the Broadheadsville chapter of Trout Unlimited, and he said the trout are going really wild right now. He said the best tactics, as we talked about before, those inline spinners and jerk baits, those small jerk baits are going to produce real well for you in those creeks and in those small lakes. So keep an eye out on that. Also, like he wanted to remind us that the trout are fall spawners, so be careful wading in those creeks. You don't step in any of those beds. Now, talking about those inline spinners, they're not only productive for trout. Our own Jim Hutchinson was out throwing these in some lakes in New Jersey and got into a few largemouth. It's a great time of season for those largemouth too, so don't pass them up. Great work there, Jim. Well, guys, whatever your target, I hope you're out and getting on them. From Pennsylvania, I'm George, your Pocono Outdoors Guy.
Hey guys, it's Gene from Black Hole Outfitters. Just want to let everybody know we're having our end of season clearance event. Every Old Town boat we've got hundreds of them are on sale. You get the best prices of the season on new pre-paddled and demo boats. Check out blackholeoutfitters.com. Give us a call at the shop. You're going to get the best price on an Old Town that you'll ever get all year long. Check us out.
So now you know the full story. I missed out on the action on Saturday because I was at my buddy's lake house enjoying some action with largemouth bass. Cats away, mice will play. I missed the action on Saturday. There's more to come. I'm not worried about that. Should be solid striper action at this point all the way through December. Sand eels arrive. Hopefully all good. All not so good on the offshore grounds for this weekend. That's according to the midweek NOAA weather forecast from the Hudson to Baltimore, which shows some decent swells arriving sometime this weekend. I know the surfers are going to be enjoying it. Of course, we're going to have some northwest winds. Those are in the forecast for Friday into Saturday with some heavy swells. So it should be some good fishing ahead. Just keep in mind that the boats that are getting offshore still, I know the Mushin out of Point, the Gambler had a recent trip. This trip aboard the Miss Barnegat Light out of Barnegat Light over the weekend, they're experiencing a tremendous yellowfin bite at the Hudson Canyon. So if you're looking for some future fall opportunities with the tuna, just keep those head boats in mind as those fish are still active offshore. Now, my coworker and friend Mike Caruso at the Fisherman got out recently offshore fishing for yellowfin aboard a WorldCat 400 CCX for the tuna bite. Cool video. You got to check that out. It's in the email description, and take a look at what you can experience by heading offshore when you get those perfect windows. Now, sea bass action is underway in the Garden State. Many of the head boats are banging on the knuckleheads, the porgies too, just like Nick Konicheski's article in the October edition of the Fisherman magazine. But the porgy action, even down into Cape May, I'm surprised. I often don't think of porgies down in Cape May or off of Delaware, but lo and behold, Sam Zeilman of the Cape May-based Vindictive Fishing, he had porgies to 3.5 pounds to go with those sea bass the other day. So that's a good opportunity to load up the box, bring some fish home for dinner, or pack the freezer. Tautog, of course, are still in the mix in New Jersey and Delaware. We'll get the uppage of bag limit next month, but right now, you've got some good opportunities with a few tautog in the mix. In fact, Howard Owen texted early Wednesday with this shot of Brian Berry. They were going to weigh this fish in sometime Wednesday afternoon. Perhaps it'll be an official weigh-in for the Fisherman Magazine's Dreamboat Fishing Challenge, which continues through November. As soon as I get the weight on that jumbo tautog, I will pass that along. Of course, on terra firma, the tautog action is still solid as well. Canal, Jetty Rocks, Barnegat Light, Atlantic City. My good friend Pedro Ildefonso turns 11 years old today. Happy birthday, Pedro. But he's been getting tautog from shore someplace up in North Jersey. So you've got that in the mix as well. And don't forget, Surfcasters, you've got that American Angler Surf Fishing Tournament on LBI this Sunday, October 16th. You've got over $2,500 in fishing retail prizes. Every kid registered in that contest will walk away with a prize package that's worth over $25. You can get information on that at AmericanAnglerUS.com. A lot of striped bass in this discussion this week. You've got the wheeling turns, those small birds on small baits. I'm understanding some friends are talking about bluefish in the 6 to 12 class. Although my friend said 6 to 12 inches. I got excited. Some really big bluefish up in the northeast in the New England waters. Hopefully they invade our beaches sometime later this fall. And of course, you've got false albacore zipping under those birds, flying and hitting on bait. So a lot of times if you see those birds on top, could be false albacore as well. But remain calm, plenty more stripers to come, as the buffalo stampede just means the cork is popped, but the bottle is still full, and there's more action to come here in the New Jersey, Delaware Bay region on striped birds. Learn more in the October edition of the Fisherman Magazine, that beautiful orange cover by John Fallon. It's in newsstands, at your local tackle shop. Read up, gear up, plug them up, and I'll see you next week at thefisherman.com. Hope to see you on the beach as well.
After a quiet week for entries, things should really start to pick up as we get closer and closer to the Dreamboat finish line. Here are the official standings for total points as of October 13th. First place is Rob Carazano, second place is Dean Paella, third place is Sam Dibner, and fourth place is Garrett Weir. The Dreamboat Fishing Challenge is the Fisherman subscriber-only multi-species fishing competition with a chance to win a new Steigercraft 23 Miami powered by Yamaha, along with many other great prizes. Visit thefisherman.com to subscribe and get all the details so you can be part of the action.
Hey everybody, just going to give you a quick rundown of what's going on in the Coastal Kayak Clash this week. We had 3 entries. The first one was a 17.5-inch porgy caught by Greg Vergare, which is good enough for first place in the category. The second one was a third place albie, or hardtail, entered by Justin Oser at 26.25 inches. And the last one was a big one, hard one to beat. Justin Oser again, tournament leader with a 27-inch blackfish. That leaves us with this at the top of the tournament. Justin Oser is leading the world with 11 points. Bob Wagner is holding down second place with 7 points. And Tom Hode is nipping at his heels with 6 points.